Okay, so if you want to look at this idea of what's going to happen with population, Malthus, in his essay on the principle of population in 1798, makes some very dire predictions about what's going to happen with population and food supply, and that we're going to overpopulate the world and we're going to undervegetate the world, and that's going to be an issue. Now, Malthus doesn't take into account the idea that people are already striving to employ birth control methods during the latter part of the 18th century to try to limit the size of their families. The English writer James Boswell makes regular mention of sexual encounters, quote, in armor, end quote. When we talk about in armor, what do we really mean? Well, what are you never supposed to leave home without if you think you're going to have that kind of relationship? Okay, people are starting to work on the issue of condoms, to work on the issue of how to limit population growth by the end of the 18th century. Okay, French historians are going to say that coitus interruptus is a reason why the French birth rate declines slightly after 1770. Both of these cases in mind, the thing to remember is that any attempt to use birth control in this period was unreliable, to say the least. So, why do we have population growth in the 18th century? One, there was not a boom period, an explosion period. There was a gradual increase in population over the course of an entire century. We have increased birth rates and decreased death rates after 1740, but we can't really demonstrate that those things are an explosion. Two, we have better agricultural products, better means of producing food. The food supply increases arithmetically throughout the century. That's going to lead to greater life expectancy. Three, we're going to have epidemics and disasters happen less frequently. And they're not going to have the same kinds of impact that they had, say, when the Black Death wiped out 50% of the population of Europe in the medieval period. Yeah, you're going to have your instances of whooping cough in Sweden or hunger in France killing significant parts of the population, but it's not going to be as dramatic as the problems of past times created. You're going to have changes in the way we fight war, and war is going to become more professional, more focused on soldiers, and very much less involved with civilian populations. So you would often double the casualties in a war to account for the number of civilians killed. That's simply not going to happen at this point. That is going to make a change. The question will become, when is too much population growth enough? And when do people start to think about limiting the size of their families or making changes to limit population growth? I think it's fair to say that in the 18th century, people didn't make that choice. Families continued to grow, life expectancy continued to rise, and as a result, population gradually but continually grew through the 18th century. I will be back in a few minutes with part 3, which will be the assignment.